So this one is disgusting. This is disgusting because it's freaking huge! Hello, my mushrooms! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my cozy corner of the internet where I aim to spread autism awareness and hope through my story. I also have apple pie chai tea with me today, which I highly recommend to all of my tea drinkers out there. Smells like harvest in a mug. Have you ever wondered if autistic people can be both hypersensitive and hyposensitive? What does it even look like to be overstimulated as a high-masking adult? In this video, we'll explore hypersensitive and hyposensitivities in autistic people, what overstimulation can look like in adults, and discuss tips for autistic people and their loved ones on how to navigate sensory sensitivities. Let's dive in. Autistic people often have sensory sensitivities because they process the world differently than neurotypical people. If you are an autistic individual with sensory sensitivities, you will likely fall into one of two categories, hypersensitive or hyposensitive to sensory stimuli. Hypersensitive autistic people avoid sensory stimulation because their brain has a heightened response to sensory stimuli. Common examples include, but are not limited to, loud noises, bright lights, strong smells, scratchy fabrics, certain flavors, and large crowds. Hyposensitive autistic people, on the other hand, often seek sensory stimulation because their brain has a dampened sensory response. Here are a list of things that could be affected by this. High pain tolerance or indifference to pain, struggles with detecting temperature changes, strong desire for constant motion like spinning or swinging, not responding to loud noises or when their name is called, tendency to seek out loud sounds and high-pitched noises, drawn to bright or fast-moving visuals and vibrant colors, preference for strong flavors like spicy foods, higher tolerance for unpleasant smells, leading to a tendency to sniff people and objects to interact with them, or may experience underwhelming feelings instead of being overwhelmed by stimuli. So, can you have both? Absolutely! Autistic people can be both hypersensitive to certain stimuli and hyposensitive to others, even though it's more common to lean heavily towards one or the other. Every autistic person with sensory sensitivities has their own unique sensory profile. Specific things that they are either hypersensitive to or hyposensitive to. Discovering your own unique profile and sharing it with your loved ones will benefit yourself and give others a greater understanding of your needs. However, it's important to remember that sensory sensitivities are not required for an autism diagnosis. You know, I say that a lot. I think I need to make a video on what actually is required for an autism diagnosis. Stay tuned, I'm going to put that in the works. In the DSM-5 criteria for ASD, sensory sensitivities are one of 4 options listed under Criterion B, alongside stimming, special interests, and difficulty with change in routine. Out of those 4, only 2 are required for an autism diagnosis. The opposite is also true. The presence of sensory sensitivities doesn't make someone autistic. There are other neurotypes that have sensory sensitivities, like ADHD and HSP, or a highly sensitive person. However, if you're autistic and you do have sensory sensitivities, here are the examples the DSM-5 lists. Apparent indifference to pain/temperature, adverse response to specific sounds or textures, excessive smelling or touching of objects, and visual fascination with lights or movement. Don't you just love the way the DSM-5 paints autistic people like they're the weirdest creatures in existence? Apparent indifference, adverse response, excessive are all ways it describes autistic people's unique response to sensory stimuli. If you couldn't tell, I'm not that big of a fan of the way the DSM-5 words that. Yes, sensory sensitivities can be debilitating sometimes, and yes, autistic people are funky. There's no getting around that. But being funky is not a bad thing. It just means you process the world differently than your average Joe. Did you know that sensory sensitivities can actually be beneficial? For example, my keen sense of smell helps me craft unique, beautiful candle fragrances. I love crafting candles, and if I could, I would spend all day mixing fragrances together to see if they harmonize. I have made 4 nostalgic harvest candles, that's old-fashioned for autumn by the way, 4 winter-themed candles, and several assorted warm season candles. When I'm not burning one, I often pick one up when I walk by just to give a good sniff. And yeah, I might stand there sniffing longer than a neurotypical person, but I'm just thoroughly enjoying my creations. However, it can also look a little funkier than deeply inhaling a candle for several minutes. I like sniffing people. I know it sounds odd, but the smell of those I'm close to brings me peace, so I like sniffing them. My sisters are good sports and will usually sniff me right back. Having a keen sense of smell doesn't mean you're autistic, but if you are an autistic individual who is hypersensitive, then you can use this to your advantage. Autistic sensory sensitivities may not appear how you think they do. They can be more than just a strong aversion to loud noises and bright lights. I don't have time to discuss every sensory sensitivity I have, so I'm only going to go over 3 of my funky ones just for fun. You're welcome. Number 1. Plant roots. I know you guys were waiting for me to use my numbers. I used to think I was just traumatized by VeggieTales the rumor weed.
Oh look! It's Dip the Little One! What was I so nervous about? You've met your match, weed. I'm gonna take you, and I'm gonna...
But in reality, I am visually overstimulated by plant roots. Yes, that's a thing. Visual overstimulation for autistic people can be caused by any visually chaotic image or environment, like clutter, excessive decorations, crowded places, complex or high contrast patterns, or intricate designs or artwork. Or in my case, plant roots. Though everything I just listed bothers me as well. I have no issues with tree roots, or roots that are smaller than the plant itself, but as soon as a weed has more roots than the branches, it freaks me out. All the hundreds of tiny little roots branching off of each other create this chaotic mess that visually overstimulates my brain. Thankfully, my mom accommodated this sensory sensitivity long before we knew I was autistic. Instead of forcing me to pull all the weeds in our yard, she just asked me to get the small ones and leave the big scary ones to her. Thanks, Mom. You the best. Number 2. Blenders and vacuums. I know this is technically 2 things, but they both fall in the same category for the same reason. Appliances are loud. From vacuums to blenders to food processors, something is always making an unbearably loud noise in the house. And I don't know if this is common, but as a child, I had nightmares about being chased by the vacuum cleaner. As a teenager, I had a mild fear of vacuuming because one time it got stuck and somehow managed to scream at me even louder than it normally did. I didn't let that fear stop me from vacuuming, lest someone figure out I was still afraid of the vacuum. As an adult, I wore earplugs when I vacuumed up until Gavin and I bought a quieter vacuum. Those do exist, and they're fantastic. Number 3. Shower heads. This one has befuddled me for the longest time. I've always had a strange aversion to shower heads, and until recently, I assumed it stemmed from nightmares. Nightmares where I'd be choking on tons of water, pouring from multiple shower heads all turned on at the same time. Yeah, I know that doesn't sound scary, but if you were in it, you might think differently. Those dreams actually stem from my emotional regulation issues that come from the sensory overwhelm caused by shower heads. For those of you who are unaware, showering in itself is actually a common autistic sensory sensitivity. From the noise of the water, to the sensation of being wet, to the freezing tile floors, it can cause a lot of autistic people to become overwhelmed, which explains why poor hygiene is associated with autism. For me, showering in and of itself has never been overwhelming. However, ever since I was a child, I had an aversion to shower heads. Just looking at them. I hate them. I was uncomfortable showering in any shower besides my own, and when my family would go on trips, I would often head straight to the bathroom to check what type of shower head it had instead of exploring the room with my sisters. Most of the time, the shower heads were fine. But occasionally, there would be one that messed with me. So, just for kicks, let's find a few. Okay, so this one is disgusting. This is disgusting because it's freaking huge! I mean, look, what is all this? Like, why do you have to have it, like, to where you're drowning underneath the water? Like, if you stood under that, your whole body and head would just be drenched in water at all times. And that is, I don't know how that doesn't mess with anybody, because no. I actually do like rain showers, because this is like a rain shower where, like, it's coming straight from the ceiling. Like, that's fine, but, like, it's huge. Don't even get me started about the fact that it has another nozzle. Oh my gosh. All right. Moving on. Okay, this is actually okay. I like this for a couple reasons, and I don't like it for a couple others. Okay, so this one is a rain shower head, which is nice. It's also circular. For some reason, circles are nice. But it's coming straight out of the wall, which is super nice because it cleans up all the clutter of like the cords. I don't like all the cords. Oh my gosh. What is this? No. This has 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 nozzles. I don't know how big of a body you have, but like what on earth makes you need 3 nozzles at the same time? That would be so stressful, because if I was in the shower, I wouldn't even know what button to press, because I'd be like, where's the water coming from? Is it coming from that one, or that one? Does it come from all 3? Because if it came from all 3, I literally am just like, nope, look like I'm gonna be dirty today, because that's that is so not happening. Nope. Well, that was traumatizing. Can't believe those shower heads actually exist. The overstimulation is basically caused by large amounts of water. Shower heads that are too big pour too much water out of them. Showers with multiple heads are spraying streams of water from multiple sides of the room. And nozzles that shoot water from one stream are really intense. And all of these actively scare me. Because the amount of water coming from the shower head, or heads, is too much for my brain to process at one time. Despite the fact that autistic people can use their sensory sensitivities to their advantage, most of the time they are a hindrance to daily life. For some, they can even be debilitating, and I don't want to diminish those struggles. Overstimulation from sensory stimuli can cause meltdowns, shutdowns, or bouts of autistic rage. And while I personally don't have meltdowns, I frequently experience autistic rage. It starts off as brain fog, and builds to autistic rage with prolonged exposure to overwhelming sensory stimuli. While I intend to discuss autistic rage in detail in another video, for now, just understand it as the intense emotional outbursts an autistic person can experience when they are overwhelmed or triggered. So what does this actually look like in autistic adults? While I can't speak for everyone, for me personally, overstimulation from sensory sensitivities often starts out very small and builds throughout the day or even week. For example, when the blender goes off, it's not that I immediately cover my ears, though I want to, and have a meltdown. It's that my brain feels like it's being blended with the food. My thoughts are muddy afterwards, like my brain is still stuck processing the loud noise that others barely even noticed. This brain fog makes it really hard to listen and respond to others, as well as remember what I was even doing. Yeah. The subtle overstimulation isn't really noticeable to people until it builds. If not properly given the time to process through silence and stims, the overstimulation can grow into autistic rage. Growing up, I often couldn't pinpoint overstimulation or what caused it before I blew up on my family members. But when I learned that I'm autistic, a lot of behaviors I didn't understand or couldn't control suddenly made sense. Now, I'm learning to identify my own unique sensory profile, so I can sense when I'm overstimulated and prevent it from turning into autistic rage. I'm also learning to share my sensory profile with my loved ones so they can better understand me and help accommodate me. The reason sensory sensitivities are often a hindrance to daily life is not necessarily because they are present, but because the world is not designed to accommodate them. However, you can make a difference by learning your loved one's sensory profile and accommodating their needs. Let's discuss some ways you can do so. I've noticed that there are 3 main things that help me deal with sensory overload. Number 1, space. What I mean by this is a safe space away from whatever is causing the overwhelm. For some autistic people, this could literally mean giving them space. Don't try to hug them to comfort them when they're having a meltdown. It's going to overwhelm them even more. What they need is distance from people and whatever is causing them distress. For me personally, removing myself from the situation may be necessary, but most of the time, I just need time afterwards to process and decompress. It honestly depends on the overwhelm, what it was caused by, and how long it's been going on. Though husband cuddles work too. Number 2. These numbers getting really intense. I don't know about you, but when I get overstimulated, especially by loud noise, I need complete silence. This includes eliminating small, everyday background noises that don't normally overstimulate me. It helps my brain process whatever caused the overwhelm faster than if other small noises were distracting me. Number 3. I don't know why they're so intense today, but they're just like, woo! Stimming. Stimming is number 3. Or self-soothing behaviors. These help autistic people regulate their emotions. And this is exactly what they need when they are overwhelmed. However, Some autistic people have negative stims that they use to self-soothe, and this is obviously not healthy for them. Providing or reminding them of a safe stim they like to use would help them process their overwhelm without hurting themselves. And now for some tips on how to navigate sensory sensitivities in general. For those with neurodivergent loved ones, remember that overstimulation caused by sensory sensitivities, no matter what form it takes, is not an overreaction. Their brains process the world differently. So something that seems normal to you might actually contribute to sensory overwhelm for them. Remember to have compassion. For neurodivergent people, don't let people make you feel bad for being overwhelmed. Your brain was not designed for processing certain aspects of the world. You are not overreacting. You are communicating that something is upsetting you. For those with neurodivergent loved ones, learn your loved one's unique sensory profile. Every autistic person with sensory sensitivities has a unique sensory profile. Learning what your loved one is hypersensitive and hyposensitive to will help you figure out how to accommodate them. For neurodivergent people, discover and share your sensory profile with your loved ones. Discovering your sensory profile is only part of the equation to navigating sensory sensitivities. You should share it with your loved ones so they have the ability to support you. For those with neurodivergent loved ones, accommodate your loved one's sensory sensitivities. These are not chosen by autistic people. They are just a part of how their brain processes the world. Accommodations show understanding and love rather than leaving them to navigate their overwhelm alone. For neurodivergent people, not every sensory sensitivity can be accommodated by everyone. If you have to experience something that's overwhelming, try to figure out what you can do to cope with it. And if you can't, that's okay. For those with neurodivergent loved ones, never shame an autistic person for their sensory sensitivities. This kinda goes without saying. If you love someone, don't make them feel bad for how their brain processes the world. There is nothing wrong with sensory sensitivities, only with the unaccommodating world around autistic people. For neurodivergent people, don't be ashamed of your sensory sensitivities. There will always be someone who doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand your sensory sensitivities. Don't let them make you feel ashamed or less than, because you are beautiful exactly as you are. For those with neurodivergent loved ones, if your loved one is overstimulated, give them the 3 S's: space, silence, and a comforting stim. If you can, provide them with a quiet, safe space away from stimulation. Some autistic people have harmful stims that they use to regulate themselves when they're overwhelmed. So provide them with a safe, comforting stim as a healthy alternative. For neurodivergent people, if you are overstimulated, communicate this with your loved ones so they can help you. You can't control when you're overstimulated. Your loved ones want to be able to help you process the world and regulate your emotions, but they can't do that if you don't tell them when you're overstimulated. And that's it for today. So what's your unique sensory profile? Also, please comment below if you have any tips to add to my chart. If you enjoyed this video and you want to become a mushroom among wildflowers, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel or my blog. Both are appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.